one prominent conservative talker is admitting what conservatives are really thinking.
Running against Newt Gingrich, who has limited resources, versus Barack Obama, who I saw last night. Wow, a huge crowd in Washington at
the
this big
Alfalfa
dinner.
Club dinner.
Yeah, I mean, a bunch of us sitting next to each other, very prominent conservatives, former Bush cabinet members. We're looking at each other going, I don't know if Mitt Romney can beat him.
So prominent conservatives are scared. Now they're doing what they do best when they're scared, playing ugly politics. Here's the head of the Republican National Committee, Reince Priebus.
In a few months, this is all going to be ancient history, and we're going to talk about our own little Captain Scatino, which is President Obama, who's abandoning the ship here in the United States and is more interested in campaigning than doing his job as president.
Comparing the president to a man charged with manslaughter, a man charged with this reckless cruise ship disaster where 17 people died and 16 are still missing. And here's Tea Party freshman Alan West in Florida over the weekend.
Take your message of equality of achievement, take your message of economic dependency, take your message of enslaving the entrepreneurial will and spirit of the American people somewhere else. You can take it to Europe, you can take it to the bottom of the sea, you can take it to the North Pole, but get the hell out of the United States of America. Yeah, I said hell.
Yes, you did say hell, Congressman West, and a standing ovation and cheers for telling President Obama to take it to hell. Where is the respect for the office of the president? And then there's the no-tax man, the GOP tax-free ringleader, Grover Norquist. He says, quote, Obama can sit there and let all the tax cuts lapse, and then the Republicans will have enough votes in the Senate, 20-14, to impeach. Impeach? Impeach the president for disagreeing with your policies? They are doing anything to disgrace this president, and I find it truly appalling. Joining me now is MSNBC analyst Richard Wolff and David Corn, MSNBC political analyst, and Mother Jones, Washington bureau chief. Thanks to both of you for being here tonight.
Thanks, Reverend.
Sure thing.
Richard, let me start with you. Can you believe how low they're going?
Sadly, I can. Yes, Reverend. Look, this has been going on for a very long time. And your opener was right in the sense that you linked together the strengths of the president with the sort of edge of these attacks. Because what we saw from day one was an orchestrated campaign of vilification of this president. He won big. He won in states that Democrats didn't normally win in. And the strategy, the explicit strategy of Mitch McConnell in the Senate was to deny this president any bipartisan votes. So not a single Republican could switch sides and vote with this president, even when he was doing things that were actually Republican ideas. That led to all sorts of contortions. Healthcare had to be a socialist thing as opposed to a Republican bunch of ideas that this president picked up. And you go through the list here, what you end up with is a process of trying to say this president's totally different, channeling the anger and the extremist, ugly, racist parts of the right-wing media and the Tea Party here. And you come to a point where, frankly, 3 years on, comparing the president to an incompetent Italian captain is somehow normal.
Now, David, let me ask a question, because I know you know these things better than me. President Obama lets the Bush tax cuts expire. That's an impeachable act. I mean, there's nothing unethical about it. There's nothing certainly criminal about it. I mean, you disagree with tax policies, and now that's an impeachable offense?
The only thing that surprises me here, Reverend, is that you're surprised. I mean, Grover Norquist is a fellow who has no stranger to extremist rhetoric. He wants to drown the government in a bathtub, and he's part of this right-wing coalition that, as Richard has said, for the last few years has used the most extreme and just and insulting and absurd rhetoric. You know, they compared the Democrats and Obama to Nazis when they were passing the health care legislation. You've been all over the food stamp racist rhetoric of Newt Gingrich. It doesn't stop. I mean, it's not just that they want to deny Obama his policies, as Richard mentioned. They actually are trying to deny his legitimacy.
Right.
That was behind birtherism. And you see Mitt Romney flirting with us. He doesn't say the president's not an American or wasn't born here, but he keeps saying the president doesn't understand American values. Of course, Newt Gingrich and Rick Santorum says that the president wants to destroy American values. That's the big divide in the Republican primary contents now, whether you believe Obama wants to destroy American values or just doesn't understand them. But in either case, the bottom line message is that he's not one of us. You know what that means.
And this extreme message is hurting the Republicans with independents. Richard, look at this full screen. Back in November, Willard Romney was beating President Obama by 13 points with independents. Now the president is beating him 44-36. They're losing independents with their extreme rhetoric.
Which, as the Romney campaign well knows, that's where presidential elections get decided. That's where Romney actually had his moment of strength there among independent voters. And by the way, look, you don't have to believe what we say on MSNBC, but when you it helps, but when you listen to the president, the real man speaking, and you look at what the public reaction was to the State of the Union, when you get 90% approval for the messages, the policies, the way he spoke in that speech, and you compare it to this extremist crazy talk on the right about him trying to enslave America or not being American at all. The two things don't match up, and independents may not take the party line that Republicans will, and they'll say, this doesn't add up, this doesn't make any sense. So they do hurt themselves for precisely that reason. It just doesn't stack up with reality.
Independents, David, I want your view. They're sitting home, they're watching this extreme, ugly language. Mm-hmm. What are they sitting by their TV sets saying?
Listen, I think a lot of people out there are mad about the economy. They may even be mad at the president. But they don't think he's a socialist. They don't think he's a secret Muslim. They don't think he wants to destroy America. And if Mitt Romney is going to sort of try to put that message across, the polls show it. It's not going to work. Now, the interesting thing is we heard Newt Gingrich earlier today say that he will take this fight right up to the convention. Now, right. I doubt that's going to happen, but if it does happen, and if he does lose in Florida tomorrow night, we're going to have Mitt Romney with this tugging on him all the way for the next few months to prove he's a conservative. He's going to have to sort of figure out a way to keep up with Newt Gingrich in the bash Obama category. So the longer he does that, the more this impression will become deeper amongst independents that he's out of touch and that he's part of this right-wing extremism, which doesn't go over well with the middle. They want to see problems solved without much of a fight. That may not be realistic, but the longer Romney goes on sort of flirting with this in this atmosphere, it's going to hurt his chances in the fall.
Richard, I've got to go back to this whole Reince Priebus, chair of the Republican Party, comparing the president of the United States to this captain that caused this very tragic ocean liner to go down in Italy, where people died, and people are still missing. I mean, not only does it disrespect the presidency and the president, what about the people who died, family, and about the families that's still waiting to see if their loved ones will some way be miraculously recovered, and you're taking their pain to use it for some cheap political points?
Yep. Distasteful, offensive, and by the way, it's a lame line. It's not funny. It's not pointed. It doesn't mean anything. Oh, and if the RNC chairman has a question about where this economy is going, he really ought to talk to Mitt Romney, because in that interview with Lauren Graham just last week, he said the economy was getting better. Of course it's getting better. So, if he wants to stack up to reality in any meaningful way, if he wants to find a measure of taste in this public discourse, maybe he should talk to Mitt Romney.
Well, while they're all doing their ugly chatter, David, including comparing this to where people are still hoping for miracles with some of those that are lost at sea, President Obama had a town hall meeting earlier today. He's talking about fairness. He's not feeding into the ugliness.
No, I mean, I think Richard made the point earlier. At the State of the Union speech, I thought the president was stellar. One of his best performances. He looked real. He looks like he cares. It was policy drenched. So, it's not just talk. Here are the things. I mean, since the debt ceiling, since the job speech and the last few months, he's been on the road. He's been in Washington fighting for things that people care about. Now, so he hasn't been abandoning his post. That doesn't make sense. And I think, you compare that to sort of name calling on the right. It looks good. He still has a heavy lift because the economy is still not in a good position, and a lot of people will be eager for some sort of change. But if the Republicans and Mitt Romney, if he ends up being the nominee, keeps engaging in name calling, it will make Obama's job so much easier, and he'll look so much better. And this is the key thing: more presidential than the competition.
I'm going to have to leave it there. Richard Wolff, David Corn, thank you both for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks, Reverend.